Hey guys, welcome back to my lifting series where I try and record every single set and rep that I perform in the gym while, providing some entertainment value and some education or insights along the way, along with self-development, of course. This is a learning experience for me also. Today is week 2, day 1 of my Myomax training program. You guys can get it down below if you guys want it for yourself so that you can follow it yourself. But full disclosure, it is $10, but you totally do not need the program whatsoever because you guys can just scrub through. I got timestamps and everything that you guys can follow along. So you'll know exactly what I'm doing, so you can do it for yourself. The only real advantage is that you can write it down for your own records. And there's like some notes in there about how to do certain things and whatnot. But anyway, I'm starting off week 2, day 1. It's an upper body day, so we're doing chest and back. And I'm starting off with the bent over Smith machine row. And before we get into it, I just want to talk about my grip position. I'm doing a shoulder width grip, but the difference between doing like a wider grip or a narrow grip is how it targets your back. So if you do a wider grip, you're actually going to be targeting more of your mid-back muscles. You're going to be building more thickness. And the reason for that is because it's placing the emphasis off of the lats and more so placing it on the other muscles of the back. And that just all has to do with where your elbow is positioned relative to your torso. So if it's more narrow in, that's going to automatically use more lats and shift the emphasis onto your lats, which are the muscles that protrude out from the side. So that's going to develop more of a width and a V taper. So for me, I think that I have more thickness versus, width. So I'm actually prioritizing more of a narrower grip. I'm just doing shoulder width. But if you guys feel like you need more thickness instead of width and you don't want to focus on your lats as much, then by all means do a little bit more of a wider grip. That's also going to involve your biceps a little bit less. But anyway, let's get in this first set. At the end of this, I'm doing shrugs. And by the way, I'm doing 185 at 45s and 25s on each side. Ooh. I'll never get used to how brutal barbell rows of any sort are. Any free weight variation. I know this isn't like a true free weight, but it's still very taxing because you don't have a chest support in front of you. So any bent over barbell row, your core is going to be the limiting factor. And in fact, that's why I like to equip myself with a belt to increase the intra-abdominal pressure that I have going for me so that my spine, my lumbar spine and thoracic spine aren't swaying as much. And therefore, I enact more stability throughout the movement. And I can, make sure that my back is getting the stimulus it deserves. What's crazy is I actually went up 30 pounds. So I just had a 45 and a 10 on last week. The reason why I went a little bit lighter last week is just because it's a new movement for me. I haven't done this variation pretty much ever. Of course, I've done like the barbell variation of a bent over row, but not for a long time, guys. So I'm going up 30 pounds and it feels a lot more doable. I mean, I misspoke there. I mean, obviously last week it was more doable, but it was too light. And this week, this just feels right. This is a lot better of a weight. One more thing I like to talk about regarding the form is I never really knew how bent over I should be while doing this. So I think that if you're like higher up and you feel like you're using your like upper trapezoid and you're almost shrugging it up, then that's probably too high up. And if you're all the way over where you feel like your lower back is being engaged too much, then you're probably too far bent over. So you kind of want that sweet spot. But anyway, Let's get into set number 2. We're doing 3 sets today. Ooh, I definitely feel that burn in the upper traps towards the end. It's good. After reviewing the footage, I actually noticed that when my head was facing up, so I was like looking straight while I was bent over, it looked like that kind of like fixed my form a little bit in regards to my spine was straighter and I was getting a better contraction in my back. So I don't know. I never really thought that there was too much to it because, you know, you can move your head in like every plane of motion, like almost 360 degrees. And you know, that doesn't really affect the rest of your back and your spine. So I never really thought that it was that big of a deal, but you know, sometimes, you know, the footage doesn't lie. Let me just say that. The footage does not lie. So, yeah, last one of this. I end up looking down a little bit at the end. It's kind of hard to keep it straight the whole time. Oh, but like I said earlier, guys, this isn't just a learning experience for you. It's probably equally as much a learning experience for me as well. Every time I record one of my workouts, I learn something about myself, usually regarding form. You know, what really separates the people that achieve everything they want in the gym, the people that don't, ultimately comes down to, I mean, it comes down to many factors, but one of the biggest factors is how intensely they're going with perfect form execution. So I may be crazy for this, but I'm jumping up 10 pounds from 195 to 205. I only got 8 repetitions last time, but I feel like I can handle it. Honestly, I only did one warm-up set. It was just like with 45s on each side, but I feel like I'm pretty much good to go. I'm just gonna keep pushing the limits because after all, if you guys aren't pushing the limits, then you're never gonna make progress. Progress only comes from that discomfort, from pushing through your barriers, because after all, your body is all about homeostasis. It's all about keeping things as exactly the same as it possibly can. You know, that's why this is like a very strange example, but you know, you take a, you know, like maybe drink or like smoke weed or whatever, eventually your body like gets it out of its system because it wants to return back to your base state. It's kind of an odd example, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. It's the same way of training. You beat yourself up, your body returns it back to its regular state, and only by pushing through your limits does it become bigger and stronger. Oh, let's go. That was a difficult set, but I got 8 repetitions with 10 pounds more than last time, and I got 5 of those long length partials. We're doing partials in the deepest stretch that I can of the lift. So I consider that a huge win. Let's try and maintain that forward center of mass, that forward momentum for the rest of the workout. Have you ever gotten like so sweaty where your palms are sweaty? Well, spaghetti, no, I'm just kidding. Your hands are, I don't know if you guys understand the M&M reference. If your palms are sweaty, then it makes the barbell obviously more difficult to grip. And whenever something's like more challenging to grip, I feel like it's harder to lift too, because you lose that like central nervous system activation that you need to be able to put as much force through the object that you possibly can to lift it. And you know, I think that's where like chalk and stuff comes into play. I don't have any chalk. Maybe I should try and get some. But that's kind of like the dilemma that I'm facing at the moment. I'm just kind of wiping my hands down. So it happens when you try hard. Oh, fuck. I only got 7 there. But what's important is that I took it to the utmost extreme that I could. It was definitely a failure. Failure was achieved, so I'll take it. Before I get into the next set, before I cut to the next set, I like to just mention, it kind of goes along the lines of what I was saying in the beginning, the bent over row and your hand positioning. Same holds true in just different regards with any sort of bench press. The more narrow your grip, the more tricep is going to be involved. And then the wider your grip, the less tricep will be involved, and therefore the more chest, the more the emphasis or the tension will be loaded onto your chest to lift the weight. And also, further out you are, the more front delt you're gonna get. So, you know, if you want more shoulder and chest, go out here. If you want more tricep and chest, go in here. Either way, you're gonna be involving the chest to a large degree. Just depends on where you want the emphasis to go. For a lot of people, not me for whatever reason, but when I'm like really far out here, it doesn't really hurt my shoulder as much, but for a lot of people that can kind of wear and tear on their shoulder, just because that's kind of like a less advantageous position to be pressing from for the shoulder, just based off of how the rotator cuff operates and stuff like that. So I prefer just to do kind of like a shoulder width grip where I'm stacking my joints for the most advantageous levers possible. So trying to keep my forearm perpendicular to the bar. If it's kind of like wavering in any direction, then that's going to cause some issues. Anyway, let's cut to the third and final set of this particular lift. So luckily for us, this is only week 2, so the volume isn't insane. I think by week 9, I'm doing 4 sets of each of these exercises, maybe even by like week 7 or 8. Doing 4 sets of each of these like compound lifts that we place into the beginning of the workout. So that's gonna be pretty rough, you know, but we're working our way up to it through weeks. So we should be well equipped by the time it comes around. And if we're not, and like I can't complete it for whatever reason, which, you know, I'm betting that will not be the case, I know that I have like hit that point where the gains have been like forced, you know, because like I said earlier, you got to be like powering through those breaking points and putting your best foot forward, so to speak. And if I literally hit a wall or whatever, then I know that giving it everything I got. Okay. Holy shit, that was difficult, but I hit the same metrics as set 2, so I'll take it. The last thing I wanted was to go down to 6 or below repetitions, so I'll take it. So I ideally wanted the bilateral machine row next, since I like to rotate between back and then chest and then back and then chest, so on and so forth, but it's kind of busy over in that area, so I'm going to wait for it to become less crowded so that I can tackle that. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the next exercise, which is the machine bench press, the flat variation. I'm going up 10 pounds on this from 140 to 150. So I got a 45, a 25, and a 10 on each side. I think that should be doable. And then for this, I'm doing 2 sets. For the bilateral row, I'm actually doing 3, because in this week, I'm going up from 14 sets per body part for the week to 15. And therefore, on this day, the row increases in volume by 1 set, the machine row. And then on day 4 of week 2, this exercise will go up, or this variation, the machine incline bench press, I think is what it is. It's going to go up from 2 sets to 3. So we hit 15 sets for the upper body. Anyway, let's get into it. Okay, I got 10 there and then 5 long length partial reps. So I think that's about the same metrics I got last time. But of course, when you guys are adding up like your sets and reps, you got to keep the load in mind too. So, you know, last week I did 140 for 2 sets of 10 with 5 partials. And this week I got 150. So, I mean, if you do it like the conversion of sets times reps times weight, that's like, I don't know, I'm not that great with math. But it's like 150 pounds extra. Or no, it would be like 100 pounds extra or something per set. So, you know, that's a decent amount of tonnage on the pushing muscles of the upper body. So, I mentioned it once before, but lifting always seems so much easier after you're done with it, and while you're doing it, it seems like the hardest crap ever, you know what I mean? Like, while I'm pushing through the workout, I'm like, oh, I couldn't have gone any harder. But then a few hours down the road, after I'm like in rest and digest, parasympathetic mode, just chilling, then I look back on it and I'm like, oh, I could have gone way harder. So I think that while you're in it, just try and push those limits as hard as you can. And when you're out of it, just, you know, realize that you did your best. And maybe write up some strategies for how to improve next time. After all, lifting is like a self-improvement endeavor. You know, that's what it's all about. Phew. If those long leg partials are for anything, well, yeah, of course they're like for getting like more stretched volume in, more weighted stretch volume in. But if they're not for that, then they're definitely for getting more time under tension, you know, because every time I do it towards the end, I know like I'm putting as much effort into it as I can. I know it may not look like it because I'm barely moving, but the amount of tension that it accrues after your set is pretty much over is invaluable, I think. I think that it goes a long way. And of course, these certain partials they don't lend themselves to every single exercise. It just especially tends to work with chest press variations because you're safe. You know, you're not going to injure yourself on this exercise by taking it to failure. You're just not, because it's so fixed. It's a machine. You know, you may injure yourself if you're doing it on like bench press without a spotter. That's going to be really dangerous. However, this is not, and you can really take it through its paces. But I don't really know where I was going with that. But let's move on. All right, I have officially made it to the bilateral machine row. A quick thing about this one is I'm choosing these handles up here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's these narrow grip, and there's a wider grip. And since I did kind of a narrower grip on the Smith machine bent over row, I'm choosing to do the wider grip on this so that my elbows are more flared instead of more narrow to my body. And that just goes back to what I was saying before, where your elbow position plays a huge role in how you are stimulating your back musculature. Wider out, you're building more thickness because you're getting more rhomboid and mid-trap and whatnot action. And then when you're more narrow, you're going to be instantly changing the emphasis from your mid-back to more your lats, which are responsible for that width appearance because they protrude out from your sides. So I think that whenever you can, you should kind of try and even out the stimulus, of course, unless you are trying to preferentially target one over the other. Maybe you have like a weak point and you want it to come up, or you just feel stronger in a certain area, so you want to bring up the other area. But for me, and while I do kind of want to preferentially target my lats, I have like some direct lat work coming up, so I'm trying to balance it out a bit. So if you guys do end up running the program for yourself, keep that in mind. Anyway, we're doing a drop set here. I went up 10 pounds, and we're also going up a set. So no matter what, we're going to be enacting progressive overload. And then with this, I'm really focusing on scapular squeezing and stretching. Oh, frick. So the last 2 reps, I don't think were as strong as the previous 10, but I still got 12, which is freaking crazy. That was one hell of a set. I'm trying to keep that intensity going for the remainder of this exercise. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, I don't really have much to say. Let's just get into set number 2. I'll say that first set was pretty taxing, but I'm still gonna obviously try my best. Whew. And now onto the drop sets. Oh man, hypertrophy work is so much different than strength work in the sense of you really got to do a lot of volume, you got to do a lot of sets and reps, you really got to fatigue the musculature. You can't just like do a couple sets with a really heavy weight and expect to grow. It's almost like a marathon instead of a sprint. Like you're gonna be at the gym for a good amount of hours per week if you're really serious about it. You're gonna be getting sweaty, you're gonna be having a lot of grinding sets, a lot of grueling sets, but that's just the way it goes. That's just how the body responds and how it grows muscle in that regard. You can't just come in here and do 3 sets of deadlifts and leave and expect to grow. You know, it's not powerlifting or anything. I don't know where that came from. I guess I was just thinking about it because these sets are kind of long and grueling because I'm doing drop sets and all these things. And, you know, by week 9 of this program, I'm going to be up to 22 sets per body part for the week. And, you know, some body parts like arms are up to like 26 or 27 sets, which sounds like an insane amount. But if you really want to ensure growth, sometimes that's what it requires. I like to kind of reiterate or emphasize what I just said, and that's that, you know, I was talking about how it requires a lot of volume and stuff, but it doesn't require like an insane, like you don't need to be in the gym for 3 hours, 6 days a week. Doesn't require anything at that level. Even when you are to the most elite level, there's a certain threshold where if you surpass it, your gains will probably almost be diminished. And I think that what that threshold is, and it changes for each individual, but it's just whenever you can't recover fully from exercise. Whenever you're pushing the limits too hard to where you're not recovered by the time you're hitting that same body part again, then you're gonna be running into troubles. So, you know, you should know yourself. And that's a part of the learning process. You know, no fancy app or program can tell you exactly how you're feeling. You just need to figure that out through trial and error and experience. Frick. Like I know I'm gonna have a little bit of a difficulty recovering from this workout, but I got the day off tomorrow. I'm gonna make sure I'm not stressing myself out too much. Okay guys, let's move on. Let's go and hit some direct lat work, shall we? Okay, next up I'm getting into 2 sets of the seated chest supported lat pull. So I'm really just focusing on getting the lat, and you know, goes back to what I was saying with the elbow position. So I'm really keeping my elbow tight to my body and preventing my form from swaying, because that's going to be the function of the lat. The lat's going to, you know, pull. It's going to bring the arm down like this and using your bicep and whatnot, you're going to be pulling and contracting at the very bottom. So, this exercise, especially the kneeling variation, was all the craze on the social medias, TikTok. I'm sure you guys saw it. The seated or the kneeling single arm cable lat pull. It was such a huge deal. And I used it for a little bit. I liked it. You definitely get to kind of isolate each lat at a time. It feels great. However, I think that this version is superior because you have that stability component. You're more locked into place with this movement. So that's why I choose to do it. If your goals are different, then you may do the kneeling variation, or if you don't have a bench. I'm going up from 52.5 to 57.5, so 5-pound jump. Yeah, don't get too crazy. I programmed in the intensive technique for this lift as cheap reps, and that's why I was kind of swinging at the end for the last 2 or 3 reps. So, and out of all the movements where I think that it's okay to swing, I think this is one of the acceptable ones. You're not going to injure yourself when you're so locked into place like this. Maybe you'll find a way, but I think you'll be fine as long as you're not overdoing it. One of the biggest little form cues that I'm constantly trying to drill into my own head and hope that you take something out of it too is that at the bottom of each repetition, where I get the most shoulder protraction, like this, scapular protraction. I'm really emphasizing getting a stretch on my lats. So I'm fully out, you can feel it. You can feel that stretch, and you really want to hang out there and make sure that that stretch is, stretched out to the largest degree that it possibly can. And then when you're down at the bottom, kind of retract your scapular blades, and you get those rhomboids and stuff involved so that you can really complete that repetition. With something like this, the name of the game is getting solid reps in. And this is one of those exercises where we're not doing it to get stronger, really. We're just doing it to add a little bit, sprinkling in a little bit of extra volume on top of the foundation that we're building up with the previous rows and stuff like that. Okay, let's get into the next set, the final set for this. Thanks. Oh, frick. Unfortunately, I only got 10 instead of 12, so I didn't quite hit the metrics that I got on the first set, but what can you do? Not every set can be as perfect. Not saying that the first set was perfect, though. Okay, let's move on. Okay, and just like last week, I'm doing the bilateral straight arm cable pull down. So just focusing on the lats now. We don't get any elbow involved and thus no biceps, which is something that I greatly need. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know who doesn't want more lat growth. So we're doing that, and then we're supersetting it with the unilateral cable chest fly. This program is really all about hitting all the angles that I can. So, you know, I go from the unilateral variation on this day, then on week or day 4, where we're also doing an upper body day. That's a bilateral variation. So we're kind of hitting both. Anyway, I'm keeping the weights exactly the same. So I got 67.5 on this one for the lat movement, and then 32.5 on the chest movements. Let's start with the bilateral thing. Okay, I managed to get 11 instead of 10. 10 is what I got last time. And guys, I think that's like, if you guys want a reason to buy the program, it's so that you can just record your weights. It's an easy way to record. Of course, you can do it in your notes or something, but since I looked for every exercise I'm doing in between recording, I'm looking on my phone and I'm seeing what I did last week for the same exercise. So yeah, I can attempt to beat either how the intensity technique went or how the reps went. And then of course, the sets are programmed in. This is too high. Okay. Again, I like to grab something for stability on this movement. Okay, that's one side, and down to the other. So before, but this fly variation is so freaking great. I mean, it tears my chest apart, which is ultimately what we want, is kind of a finisher chest exercise. So it definitely does this job well. Something that I'm trying to prevent is swaying too much. I noticed that I sway a little bit, and sometimes I probably cut the range of motion short at the bottom. It's not an easy exercise. I never said that. So I'm tempted to cheat here and there, especially in the latter half of the workout day. You know, it definitely gets harder towards the end, no matter what you're doing, no matter if you're doing like an accessory day, an arm day, an ab day, whatever. You're always gonna have more energy in the beginning and less energy in the end. That's just how the human organism works. So let's just get right into the second set. Yeah. Little form tidbit that I'm telling myself, and hopefully it resonates with you, is that when I'm doing the straight arm lat pull down cable pull down, I'm not worrying about making sure that my elbow is fully extended. It doesn't need to be locked out. Of course, that's going to make the lift a little bit harder when it's locked out, because the weight is going to be naturally further away from your body, and therefore your lats are going to have to work more because it has to bring the weight further to reach the end range of motion. You know, it just makes sense. However, just because it has to work harder out here doesn't mean that you can't do it right here if it feels more stable. For me, with a little bend, it feels more stable than when I'm locked out, and that's why I do it that way. I think that choose whichever variation you want. Just keep in mind that you want to stick to whatever elbow bend you're enacting. So if it's completely locked out like this, then stick with that for the full set. If it's a little bit bent, stick to that for the full set. Because if you tend to extend your elbow and lock it out, or just move it at all like this, you're going to be using tricep. And when you're using that momentum, it may not feel like it, but if you're extending at the same time, you're going to be assisting your lats with the exercise. And that's fine and dandy if the exercise permits and wants some tricep activation. However, with this exercise, we're just trying to get lat activation. So if you want to do it right, do it like I'm not trying to say that I'm always right. I could be wrong, but I think that I'm right on this. Ugh, frick. I'll tell you, I'm definitely getting gassed. This is definitely getting harder. All right, we're finally on to like the two kind of accessory-ish lifts at the very end of the, you know, at the end of every day, I added a couple exercises that kind of rotate between days. I go from abs and some side delts to calves on the next day, to back to abs and side delts, back to calves, so it rotates through, just so that I can provide more frequency with those body parts. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that now I'm on the calves, or sorry, I'm on the abs. I'm doing some hanging leg raises. I believe that I only got 10 last time, so that's a 2 rep PR. I will say, while doing the exercise, I felt a tremendous stretch on my lats. It almost like feels like something like this should be programmed in at the end of a back day, just whether it be hanging leg raises or just hanging from a bar, or better yet, maybe like a weight around your hips, you know, like one of those chains, the belts with the chains where you can attach some weight, because then you can really get a weighted stretch at the end, just for, I don't know if it would help with hypertrophy, but it would you know, essentially add more of a weighted stretch component onto the lats and maybe facilitate some more growth. It's just a hypothesis, just an idea, but it could be worth exploring at some point. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just gonna take a few more seconds and then get into the second set. Pretty soon I'm gonna have to start strapping up with these. My grip is kind of withered by the end of these days from all the back movements and stuff, even though I'm wearing straps for the most part. Shit, my grip is actually giving out. It's that sweat component that I was talking about earlier too. What is that, 8? Oh. All right, let's move on to the final exercise, the final superset. All right, last but not least, I'm hitting the machine crunch machine, the same one that I did last time. Went from like 110 to 125 here. I'm gonna try and hit the same repetitions, and then I'm supersetting that with the, you know, machine lateral raises like I was last time. But you know, the only catch here is that I'm up to 3 sets instead of 2. Yeah. All right, and then of course, like, I just turn off the camera and it flipped it around, and now I'm doing the machine lateral raises. But I'm thinking that this is gonna be the last set that I record, because I just got 2 more of the same superset, so you guys kind of get the gist of what I'm doing. I'm keeping the weight here the same, just for some added lateral deltoid work. All right, I think that that's gonna do it. Just to, you know, just so it doesn't get boring, I'm gonna end it here. But anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. This concludes week 2, day 1. We're on week 2 now. I think that today was a great workout. So anyway, I hope you guys are following along. Have a good one.